Well, I wonder if that has something to do with like you become associated, like you tell the story of I am now this wealthy, successful business owner, and then you kind of like lean into that and you build your ego around that.
Hey folks, Daniel Grimmett here from Dark Label Music. Got an awesome Music Pro Daily podcast episode here that I'm editing. If you're new on this channel, we explore the traditional and very untraditional ways that producers, audio engineers, and music creators make a living. And this was an intense podcast interview. This dude right here, Hyperbits, took my ass to church. The original purpose for this interview was just to share with you simple ways, to grow a course behind the scenes of a profitable production course from a dude that's done it. But we started out that way and about halfway through went entirely in a different direction. And this was my first time ever talking to this guy. My first time, right? First time ever talking to Hyperbits. And we filmed this a couple of months ago. And sometimes you just meet the right person at the right time. Because a few months ago, I was sort of in a place where I was trying to rediscover what my purpose is in the music industry. And this conversation ended up getting super personal and really pulled back the curtain to reveal what entrepreneurship in the music industry can be like. And even if you don't plan on ever launching a course, if you're a music creator trying to make a living, then you're going to get a lot out of this. We talked about making a lot of money and then getting too attached to it. We talked about burning out, balancing music and business. We talked strategies. We talked about taking psychedelics and much, much, much more. So without further ado, you get to watch me get some business coaching and life lessons. It's so full of golden nuggets, you might as well call it a gold rush, baby. So let's get to it.
I'm feeling quite awake right now. Pretty alive.
Ready to rock? Cool.
Yeah, man. Doing my best.
Ready to chat business. Well, hey, I want to get into like some of the questions I'm curious about, because although we're just meeting for the first time and haven't had much interaction, like I remember I've seen your school, the Hyperbits masterclass. I've seen that around for a while. So I've always been familiar with it. And there was one thing about it that I was always just like, damn, like I need to learn more about that. And I'll get into that in a second, but just like a real quick 1 minute sort of backstory. We don't have to go too far, but just mainly for me. So I know the backstory.
Yeah. Just backstory of how I started the school.
Yeah. How you got into, obviously I'm sure you got into music first, and then, how that led into the school.
Yeah. I basically, was a music producer trying to do that whole like artist touring thing. And I did do it for a little while, and it was actually pretty crazy and honestly a little scary that I had worked so long, so hard to get to this point where I could make a living off of my music. And then when I finally got to that point, I mean, that touring lifestyle is hard, like it really was difficult. And it's one, props to any artist who can kind of live off of like, not sure where their next income is coming from or whatever. But I felt like between the touring itself and just like the unknown aspect of it, I really struggled with just feeling comfortable in that type of a lifestyle. So on a whim, I was kind of like, what, like, let me just see what happens if I try running a school, because I've always like production has always been the thing that like lit me up the most and got me the most exciting. Playing gigs is fun, but it's more of like a reward, for all that hard work. And I was always driven by the production side of things. And I just decided to try to, put this school together. And I had been building an email list because I read some tip like years prior that said, like always be building an email list. You'll figure out how to monetize it later. I didn't even know what the word monetize meant at the time. I was just like, oh, that sounds, like important. And so I had built like a 10,000 person email list just from releasing sample packs and, putting it out on Reddit and, kind of very like grassroots organic type communities. And so when I sent one email and I decided, I was like, oh, I'm going to charge about $1,000 for this 4-week course, and 12 people signed up. And I was like, okay, like that's like, that's real interest, and then I decided to run it again, maybe a couple months later, and then like 23 people signed up or something. And then again, and I raised the prices, and then like 57 people signed up. And I was like, okay, like this is like, there is more traction here and more, just like genuine, like, just interest in this than anything I've ever done before. And I had been loving doing this side of things, and I loved helping people, and I felt like I was really contributing in a way that just aligned with who I am and what I represent. So yeah, basically that was probably 2015 is kind of when I kicked things off.
Okay.
And like here we are 7 years later, and I'm just, yeah, still doing it, still loving it, still having a great time. And yeah, been I guess to just talk a little bit about the school, like the one thing that we sort of do a little bit, I guess differently, maybe the niche that we sort of exposed was that we specifically kind of target like intermediate to advanced producers. We kind of trust that like if you're a beginner, you can, go on YouTube and kind of figure some of that stuff out for yourself. So most of the people that sign up for the Hyperbits masterclass are, someone who's been producing for at least a year, usually, sometimes way longer. We've had people who are producing for 10 years or even like 20 years. Like we've had a Grammy winning, technologist in BT sign up for our class before. But yeah, it's kind of that more like intermediate to advanced niche, which I don't think that many schools were doing at the time when we started it. And there's been a few, since then, but yeah, kind of a different little niche, I'd say.
The niche I prefer. It's kind of nice
Yeah.
when people have at least have the groundwork laid out, because I think there's a benefit to, like, do you have the gusto to even just get through that first step? And usually those make for good students or consulting clients later.
Yeah.
I find
And
actually hard to help people get, like, on my side with the client work. It's harder for me to help someone get their first client versus just working with someone that's like, hey, I just put in some effort and happened. I don't know how I got the clients, but I got them. How do I grow this thing? That generally is a little easier.
Totally. And it comes from a selfish place, right? Because I just enjoy working on that more sort of like intermediate to advanced stuff. Like, if you're struggling to even write a chord progression or, don't know the basics of your DAW or something, like that doesn't light me up. That doesn't get me super excited. But if you give me an idea, right, and it's like 80% of the way there, and you just need that last like 20% of like commercial polish and professionalism and, like beauty and shine to it, like I could talk about that stuff or work on that type of stuff all day, which is basically what our school is.
Yeah, I feel you. There was I love seeing this because this happens not super frequently, but more than people may think. Like for a lot of people, it was my story. A handful of clients I've worked with, it was their story. A lot of times, like producing music, whether you're more the artist side or a record producer, is just the stepping stone into entrepreneurship. It's usually like the first thing where, especially if someone like runs a studio working with clients, they get a taste of business. But then what they realize is like, actually like this more than I do act like making records. I still want to make some records. I still want to maybe perform here and there, but this is just like gave me the confidence to do what I really wanted to do. And many times we're starting, we don't know what that is. Like I didn't 10 years ago be like, in 10 years, I'm starting this production agency now so that 10 years I can help other people build. That wasn't in the plan.
Yeah.
I'm sure when you started producing songs, it was like, I'm producing songs. I'm learning how to produce that. I can open the best production school, 5 years from now, whatever. So it's interesting to meet other people where it was more of a stepping stone into, entrepreneurship.
Yeah. And I think like being able to be malleable like that and not being so like rigid and set in stone is like a low key superpower. It's actually really incredible if you're able to kind of adapt and be malleable, right? Just change with what is working. Like you don't always have like, and props to those people who are able to just like have a vision and stick with it and just do nothing else until they achieve that. I'm not like that. I feel like I'm like pushing against the universe instead of just allowing it to sort of like develop for me. So yeah, I think entrepreneurship was definitely not the initial intent, right? But there's this I'm gonna butcher it. There's this Ramit Sethi quote. It's something along the lines of like you can be the best in the world at like one thing and nobody cares, but you could be the best or you could just be good at the intersection of several things and then become the best in the world at that. And I always felt like, like I'm not the best music producer in the world. I'm not the best business owner in the world. And I'm not the best educator in the world, but put all those three things together. And I think there's probably not that many people that are doing a
Right.
much better job than me at all those three things together.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Was Ramit one of the people, like, who are you learning from when you started the course? Like, this would have been 2015, so obviously Ramit was around, and like, what were you, who were you learning? Because a lot of us learn this stuff outside of the music industry, right? Who were some of those
Yeah.
people or resources?
It's interesting. I really wasn't listening to too much like entrepreneurial stuff at the time, other than I had two podcasts that I was just like crushing. I would listen to every single episode. One of them is the Rich Roll podcast, which
Yeah.
isn't really like a business podcast. He does have entrepreneurs on there sometimes, but it's more of like a lifestyle, like health optimization. Like he's a vegan endurance ultra athlete, former alcoholic lawyer. So like I just would listen to every episode. And then I also listened to Lewis Howes School of Greatness,
Yeah.
which I have not listened to in the past, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, but I felt like he was just a very motivating, in terms of like helping me believe in myself and think like, oh, you know what, like there actually is, or I do have the capabilities to be able to pull something like this off. Because at that point I had very limiting beliefs in terms of like what people would actually pay for my services or what it is that I could offer. So yeah, those were kind of the two main guys. And then just Ramit, I had always been kind of following like, books and his email lists and things like that, but I never actually jumped on one of his courses or anything like that.
So was there like any model that you followed from like a particular marketing guru or anything, or did you just pick up little bits, or is it just all trial and error?
Yeah, dude, I got really lucky, I think. Maybe luck is also like a self-deprecating way of like, because I trusted my intuition, right? I tried to
Right.
be as organic and real as possible the whole way through, and every decision I made just felt like it was based off of like what I thought was best for, either my potential customers or for me as a business owner. And now looking back on it, I did a lot of things that they teach in, all sorts of kind of like high ticket courses, like what's his name, Joel
Joe Irway.
Irway, Sold with Webinars dude. Like I think he wrote a high ticket book, and I read it in the past like year, and I was like, man, like I made a lot of these decisions back in 2015, like just again, just not really knowing, or not having like a set plan. But some simple things like when I sent that first email to that list, like I didn't have the course built. I
Yeah.
just built a landing page, right? So like the product didn't exist. I just kind of formulated what I thought it would be like. And then once people signed up, then I built the course and things like that. And slowly increasing pricing over time, starting with like a much more kind of like one-on-one direct
Yeah.
approach. Like I did one-on-one lessons for years before I ever actually put together like a course.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, lots.
Yeah.
Initially we had like specific dates for the Hyperbits masterclass, which I think was a great way to create that kind of like core community. But now our class is always open, right? You can enroll at any time, and we're able to kind of like fulfill the students that come in and still provide tons of value, but we just don't have like set start dates anymore.
Right. Yeah. So it's like funny. So I'll just, things that were intuitive to you looking back, it's like, okay, yeah, like sell before build. And like, the first group's going to be more hands-on until you get like the curriculum down and it expands. And that it's, yeah,
Yeah,
you're just reading the book, be
yeah.
like, cool, I did that.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, I feel like a lot of it was just following. Like I have this theory that anything you do online is basically just an effort of how do I build trust, right? Like how do I break down that barrier of like who the hell is this guy? Like why would I want to work with you? And I feel like if you can remain genuine and remain real and just be a human, like there's obviously a lot of marketing techniques that like might increase your bottom line by 5 to 10
Right.
or 15%. But if it feels hard, like it feels wrong, sometimes it's not worth doing that stuff. I think you have to just determine what feels right to you, what keeps you as like a operating in a high sense of integrity. And if you can portray that through your communication, then people will respond. I think.
I think, yeah. And even double that in the music industry. where like in the
Yeah.
marketing industry, they'll give people a little bit of a benefit of the doubt because they know how the sausage is made, like, oh, hey, good copy, buddy. Like not in
Yeah.
the music industry though, right? It's very, yeah, it's, I know on my side of things with record producers, it's your brand is what's going to carry you the way, like there's a lot of hacky stuff. Doesn't mean it doesn't work. You know what I mean? But we got to think of like, if you want to stay in this for a long time and be able to retire off of it, then it's your brand. So I definitely feel you on that. So I wanted to get to this thing. So your course, it looks like you have two options now. Obviously you worked up to this, or we'll call it school. Sorry, not course, school. So they enroll in one of the options, one being 3,000, one being 5,000. Is that correct? And they have like, are they in the school for life, or does it end at some point, or how does that work?
Yeah. We like I said, we kind of have had this progression. So it started off as an 8-week course. Then eventually right before COVID happened, which was, again, got probably kind of lucky, but right before COVID happened, we decided to extend it to a full year of access. And then within the past year, we've changed it into just, a lifetime program. So you sign up and you're in forever.
So these prices would be considered, in the marketing space, high ticket, right? Especially the 5,000. There's people that consider more than that high ticket, but this is no phone call though, right? Like they just go and check out. From what I could see, they go and check out on the site.
Yeah. So we have, again, same sort of like progression. It started off as strictly just like, landing page, and people would sign up, through online means only, kind of like shopping cart style. Over time, we started to add the ability for people to, speak to an instructor, and kind of have these like strategy sales calls. And we basically like did a little hybrid model, I guess, is like we'll have, the landing page there, and we do get probably about like 40 to 50% of our signups like just directly through a landing page. We nurture them, through email drips and things like that. But probably 50% come from just like signing up, running sales, things like that. And then the other 50% do come from like kind of more hands-on like calls that we do have. But those are kind of like funnels on the back end, and inside of our email list. Like once people are in our ecosystem, we offer these opportunities for people to like sit down with us and spend 45 minutes like talking through their goals and where it is that they're at. And then like, so we basically do have both now, but it was a progression to get to that point.
Okay, got it. And how many do you have on your enrollment team? Like how many
as
people
far
take
as
those
like
calls?
Just one.
Okay,
Just our lead instructor.
Cool. Okay, sweet. Here another a deep cut here. So I love studying, what people are building in our industry, and I went through, of course, the unison funnel, right, for the MIDI MIDI chord. I think I saw Blake's face in the ad. I was like, oh, what's this thing? And I noticed. So that's not your company though, right?
Unison, no.
Okay.
So the guy who started it, Sepp, actually took the Hyperbits masterclass at one point, and we've since sort of just like become friends and connected, and like we've done some kind of like partnership stuff, and have worked together. Yeah.
Because it's a brilliant funnel, and I went through it to just see what was going on. And I noticed at the end, I think the last step was like, hey, thanks for buying, blah, blah, blah. By the way, sign up for this masterclass. And it was yours. And I was like, interesting. Maybe you knew or didn't know, but
we have been talking about setting that up. So it sounds like we haven't chatted in a few weeks, so it sounds like that has actually been like started to become fully integrated yet. So actually on my to-do list
a year and a half ago, bro.
Oh, really?
This is a long time ago. Yeah. So maybe it was just throwing you a bone or something.
Maybe it was we had a maybe it wasn't the Hyperbits masterclass. We had a ultimate producer blueprint product, which was basically bucketing a bunch of our courses and a bunch of his sample packs and MIDI and stuff. That was that was kind of we had a different partnership, and we're actually working on a new one now. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. Maybe that's what I saw then, but I saw the tie in there. I was like, okay, interesting. So my question was going to be like, how do you go about developing those kind of partnerships? But it sounded like he happened to go through your school, and hey, no better way than that,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
always cool to see students kick ass. So
Oh, totally, man. And you know, we've actually had a few students like start some really successful businesses. Like we so obviously Sep with Unison, but there's also Will from what is it, edmtips.com,
yep.
and Nico who runs
Okay.
pianoforproducers.com.
Yep.
So just yeah, just a bunch of cool like business owners at this point. But yeah, honestly, my strategy for partnerships has always been to sort of like same thing, kind of like just be a friend, be a human. Like most of the time I like to just like if I have a call with somebody that I want to reach out to and eventually work with, like that may come, but what I really want to do is like get to know you. Like what lights you up, what gets you excited, like what are you into? Let's just like talk and chill, and maybe we could also just lean into each other a little bit about like, you know, how difficult it can be to run a you know, an online business and being an entrepreneur, and like having that like network of support is so important. So that's my first goal, is like, can we help each other? Can we just support each other in any way? And then if we can also work together and, you know, benefit from that, awesome. But if not, it's cool. Like I'm down to just chat, you know, like let's have a coffee and hang out and get to know each other. And that seems to be sort of like the best way to for me to operate, because then I also I don't know, just like I feel like my life gets richer, you know, because I'm making friends basically, and that's more important than like anything like money or, you know, success. At the end of the day, is just having like cool people and doing cool shit with cool people. That's like legitimately my motto, you know.
Yeah, and that's for anyone listening is true. Like that's not just fluff. Like sitting in a room by yourself and making a bunch of money is actually kind of sucks, you know. Like it's
It's
fun building
awful.
with people, and yeah, it does maybe to a certain amount, and then past that it's kind of just like, oh my gosh, this just what my life is, collecting dollars
Yeah,
in a room by myself.
collecting digital
Yeah.
tokens inside of a computer that you never really, I mean, yes, there is, you know, real benefit to having money for sure, um but yeah, I actually like to basically I live in an entrepreneur house here in San Diego. So I live with 5 other business owners, and we get to sit down every Monday and kind of like have these like masterminds together where we talk about like one business problem, one personal problem, and you have this like board of directors essentially like helping you work through those things. And I have done
Wow.
literally nothing in my life that has been more beneficial than like for my just like overall happiness, my mental health, um, just I think who I am as a person, than living in this house. Like it has been by far the coolest like experience of my life, like
That's
hands
crazy.
down.
So you live in a business mastermind basically.
Pretty
That's
much,
crazy,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Wild. Because you know, I obviously know this course has been around for 7 years. I've seen the price. I'm sure it does good. We could guess all day at what the numbers are, but, and we're signing on. It's like, hey, I'm going to face the camera this way because my bed's behind my desk. You know, I'm like, hey, maybe this guy just
Yeah.
likes to live pretty, you know, pretty trim, you know, and pack it all into one room. So that makes sense. So you're almost in a, yeah, you're living in an entrepreneurship or entrepreneur house, I guess. I don't even know what to call it.
Yeah,
Mastermind.
it's kind of like an entrepreneur house. Some people call it like a founder house. But yeah, it's you know, I've done the whole, like I lived in like this like really nice, you know, kind of high end floor to ceiling window apartment in San Diego with my now ex, and that was still a beautiful experience. I had a great time with that, but like at the end of the day, it was pretty lonely comparably now to like what I'm doing now. And, you know, everybody's got their own bedroom. There's six bedrooms in this house, but we have a huge like, you know, living space and, you know, a big kitchen and a yard and things. And we have a chef that like cooks every day. So it's just a very like communal thing. And if you can't, you know, you can't replace that, like having this community. And we run events all the time, like wine nights just for other entrepreneurs once a month. Like those connections are worth so much more to me than like that like high end like pristine apartment was, because
Dude. 100%.
yeah,
I'm
like it
going
was
through
cool,
that.
but
I'm going through that a little bit right now. I started my
oh yeah.
consulting company in um, not to make the show about me, but for those that
No,
have listened to
no.
the podcast, kind of know my story. So I built like a real successful, like remote based production agency working with artists and Fortune 500 companies, all that kind of stuff. And then went into a bad depression, kind of lost it all and started over. And my buddy let me just stay in a room in this old house from the 80s. And I moved back to Charlotte from Nashville and then, and then built the consulting practice and things change. And like, oh, cool. That's a cool car I'd like to have. And hey, let me get this apartment and stuff. And yeah, I'm at a point right now. I'm just like, I was over there hanging out the other day and it's, nothing compared to what I live in now. It's a total like downgrade technically as far as niceness or newness or whatever, or area. But I'm like, dude, I miss just being here. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking that I might just get back grounded, man. And
Yeah.
nothing
And
beat, cause you're around people and it's fun, man. Yeah.
yeah. And I almost feel like you kind of like just over time, right? Like you sort of, like you don't even realize that like you're kind of in those glory days, like where it's like
True.
when you're in that house, like at the moment you're probably like fighting and grinding and trying to get out of it, right? But I feel very aware right now that this is awesome, like this is like
Yeah.
really what I want, like truly. And yeah, and it is kind of interesting to think about, like, okay, like yes, like the money is coming in and there's all these like goals and stuff in the future that I have, but at the same time, like I'm starting to realize that what I actually want is a lot less than maybe I originally thought.
Dude.
So
yeah, please
yeah.
go on. Yeah, this is all stuff that I'm dealing with. So yes, go on.
I don't know. Like like, okay. So on the front of like, most people want to buy a house, right? And it's not to say that I don't necessarily want to have a house at some point, but like you couldn't pay me any amount of money right now to leave this house. You know what I mean? Like I love having like housemates and having this community, and just like 2 out of the 6 people right now are traveling. They're at like a bachelor party in Sedona, and like the house has like just a little bit of less energy, and I feel that it's palpable, and I actually miss them. They've only been gone for 2 days, but you know what I mean? Like being alone in a big house sounds lonely to me. So I feel like I'm starting to crave less of that like kind of American dream, the big house, the white picket fence, all that. And even external, really all those like sugar rushes, right? The new car, the house, the golf membership or club membership, whatever. I don't know. Anything that like honestly costs a lot of money doesn't necessarily appeal to me as much, because I feel like my overall sense of self is full. Like I feel fulfilled right now, and it's mostly through community and through basically the things that matter most to me, which is like relationships, community, and health.
Yeah, man, it's like the best feeling is feeling like we have enough, right? Because then you're good. And I think there's a lot of regular people that like, hey, I feel like I have enough. But then it's like, but then is that going to take away from the drive to want to build this thing? Or does that even matter? Like maybe this is something like I have enough and I just like doing this stuff. Can you tell I'm going through an existential crisis right now?
I'm with you, man. I'm sort of in the same spot. I think we could probably talk a lot about this, because like, yeah, I'm definitely not as driven as I once was. Granted, I am driven in a different way. Like my guiding principles right now are kind of what I was talking about earlier. Like I want to do cool shit with cool people. That's pretty much it, because like it's not about the bank account. It's not about the big house. It's actually about like what gets me excited. Like what do I want? Why do I want to wake up each day and like do anything? And for me, I've actually rediscovered music quite a bit over the past like 6 months to a year since I moved into this house. And like I've been creating music all over again after like a few years of really not producing my own original stuff for a while. So I feel like I'm like the quintessential like indie movie film, like went through a massive breakup, like went into this like, I don't know, entrepreneur house, like rediscovered music and what life really means to him, right? And like now I'm amped up about all these things again. But
this is
I'm definitely not. Keep going.
You're definitely not what?
I was just gonna say, I'm definitely not like sitting around looking at my bank account and like thinking that that makes me happy. You know what I mean? Like it's just not about that.
The more I started making them, it made me more worried about money. I don't know
Hmm.
if you relate to that. It was like
Yeah, but
exciting, and then it got to, I don't know where it switched, and I'm sure that switching points for like different people. Then it was just like, oh god, well, I can't lose any of this now. You know, it's like this
yeah,
weirdest. I almost cared less about it. It was just kind of like, all right, yeah, we got, the company's got 2-3 months in reserves. Like, we're cool, we're cranking. I didn't think about it as much, even though technically I was less safe. And then you have whatever more in, you know, you're like, okay, I could not make
yeah.
money for a couple of years, but now you're like, then it becomes all about that. I don't know. That's one of the weird things I went through in the past year.
Well, I wonder if that has something to do with like you become associated, like you tell the story of I am now this wealthy, successful business owner, and then you kind of like lean into that and you build your ego around that, and then
Yeah.
it becomes like who you are, right? And that happens with everything in life, whether it's success there, but it can also happen in a relationship, right? Like you have this beautiful girlfriend or wife, and then you are that you know you're the boyfriend of the hot girl, or the husband to the hot wife, like, and you have the American dream, whether you buy that house, right? There's all these stories that you start telling yourself, and then when that stuff either gets taken away or ends or whatever happens, like your ego is fighting so hard at trying to recapture like who you were, instead of just being able to look around at like the current situation and be like, yo, you know what, like I'm actually none of those things. Like I'm just trying to be present, right? And in this moment, like I could say anything, right? But I'm just this human talking in front of you and in front of a screen, right? And I don't know if that might be a little bit out there, but I also have really like well, I basically gotten into psychedelics like as a healing modality over the past like maybe year or
I
so.
have friends in San Diego. I know what's up.
And I don't know if have you ever done any psychedelics? I don't know if you want to talk about this on
A
camera,
lot.
but
I'm a
okay.
similar to yeah, the what was it, Rich Roll, is that the guy? Yeah,
Yeah.
all in recovery, all that kind of stuff. There's actually psychedelics in recovery. I'm not in that, but I have friends in San Diego that they use psychedelics to actually aid for recovery from other, substances, meth, and yeah, I mean, I was just when I was a teenager, yeah,
Okay.
all of the drugs, put them all on the table, please. So
Well,
yeah, been there.
so do you abstain from like all sorts of drugs now? Like you
Anything,
won't
everything.
touch psychedelics or anything?
Nah, nothing.
It's interesting. You're actually like the second or third podcaster that I've met, or I guess business owner who is also like recovering. And
Yeah,
I wonder
I've had
if there.
slips for sure. Like I've had different periods, like 10 years of time, 2 years of time. So I've slipped, but it's never that stuff. It's alcohol is which is just so terrible for you. That's usually the one that where I slip at this stage of my adult life. But when I was a kid, I was really into psych and had some great. I always say that, speaking of psychedelics, acid was the only drug I did once and was like, that was cool. I'm cool with that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's the experience I need to have. Any other drug, I'm just like more,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah,
the
no,
only
that
one.
is
Yeah.
that. I read a book called How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan, and it basically is like just teaches you about psychedelics, and it's this like 60-year-old dude, right, who's never done it in his life, and he talks about like what it's like sourcing it, finding it, like finding a shaman to like kind of have these like healing experiences through it, and he like talks through some of these like incredibly beautiful experiences. And I had never done it a year ago, like never, not once in my life, and so I think I just was in a place where I was like ready to like relinquish control and see what comes up. And it's actually, I think, been a very freeing thing for me. And like you, like I no desire to do it like regularly. If anything, I actually after doing it, I'm like, whew, like
Oh,
give
I
me
have
some
the desire. I just can't.
yeah, it's just like give me some time. I'm just gonna be
Sure.
a little
Yeah.
while before I want to do that again. But I think what it's done is sort of like um maybe recalibrated some sort of pathways or something maybe that were like kind of stuck and like a little rigid, and help me look at things from a new perspective, and honestly, yeah, just enjoy life a little bit more. I think I've been a very like driven, motivated high performing type dude. And lately I've been a little bit more like, you know what, like life is beautiful. Like I want to enjoy it, and I want to do cool shit with cool people. So like, I think it's helped maybe balance me out a little bit.
Right. Yeah. As where I'm naturally the other way, out of control. And I have to like, okay, let's be an adult and, have schedules and do
Yeah.
responsible things. But yeah, definitely for people that more naturally that way. And it's like, hey, I want to just like kind of get out of my space and not have the control for a second. And that opens up a lot of different cool
Yeah.
things for
and
people.
and it's not to say that control piece isn't, there's good things to it, like
Oh, definitely.
it's
I would
definitely great,
choose
right? Like
that over. Yeah, no, for sure. For
totally.
sure. Yeah. The music thing, because a lot of us that start in music, then we build businesses, then we stop doing music, right? Stop making it.
Yep.
I see that with everyone. That's another thing that like in the past couple of years, I'm like, I need to get back to instruments and stuff. Tell me like what did you have just like a realization where it's like, why am I not making any music anymore? Or like, did that bother you, or was not really, just something you got back into when you had the time again? Or
I think like now that I've had a little bit of time, like looking back on it, I think what got me really excited about it all over again was a community of people who are excited about music, right? Which is what I had back when I started getting into music, right? Like all my friends and I, we would go to shows and we would talk about the new releases, and we would go like, like we would just spend so much time like getting excited about music. And so I wanted to dive more into it. And then for a while, right, I was kind of removed from some of those friends group, like living with a partner, and like, I don't know, I wasn't really going to shows anymore. So I kind of lost like this interest. Plus I was in it all day, right? Like in the production side of things, like the school and helping others. So I maybe burnt myself out a little bit that way. But since I've been in this entrepreneur house, I actually just randomly sat down on like a Tuesday or something like a year ago, maybe a little less than a year ago, and was like, wonder what it would feel like to just like make a track again. And I like pumped something out fairly quickly, and I was like, oh, this is all right. But everyone else in the house got like really excited. They're like, whoa, you just made that? Like this is awesome. Like they were so excited for me that I was like, oh yeah, this actually is pretty cool that I can just like make high quality music, right? And then I go into shows, and I think psychedelics also, like listening to music for the first time on psychedelics, like
yeah,
I was like, whoa,
right.
this actually is like changing the way that, like, it's kind of like visually when you see a tree while you're on like mushrooms or something, and like forever that like visualization of how detailed and beautiful it is now ingrained in my mind. The same thing with music. I just couldn't believe how like the textures, and I already felt like I was pretty nuanced as far as like the details of music and the things that I could hear. And then I was just like, whoa, there's this other level. I feel like I've actually gotten even deeper into it. And yeah, I just got like super excited about it again, and went to a few shows. And I think finding artists that I like love all over again got me super excited about it. Like I just got super obsessed with Ben Bomer. I don't know if you like listen to that stuff at all, but it's like kind of melodic, deeper house. And yeah, just kind of just super, super pumped about it all over
Yeah,
again. I don't think there was like
reignited.
a specific moment, but yeah, it was just a collection of all these things.
Yeah, because I go back and forth. I got into the business, then you identify so much as all this comes down to this. What you were saying about the story thing. And it's like, well, actually, I'm just a musician that happens to also know business,
Yeah.
versus like, I feel like the more I lean to like, I'm the business guy, the less it feels like real to me, even though I happen to just do that for a living. So balancing those two out, not that I have desires to be like a rock star or anything, but just spending more time doing it, getting in a room with
Yeah.
friends and shredding,
Well,
so
because at the end, yeah, because at the end of the day, the reason we started getting into music is because it was fun, right? Like it's a fun thing. So if you sit down and you're not having fun, I would argue like don't, you don't have to do it. And
good point.
I mean, even you use the word like, oh, I should get back into it. Like I don't know if you should, right? Like it's like, does it excite you? Like if it makes you happy and you have fun doing it and you have like friends to share that with, then yeah, you should. But if you don't, like it's totally cool
Right.
if you don't, and I feel like this story of exactly what you're saying, like business owners who start in music eventually kind of stop. I think I know 10 plus people that have kind of gone through this this like path. And a lot of them don't come back to music, and then they kind of move on to other things. It all boils down, I think, to just like what gets you excited. So yeah, a lot of my friends just get super excited about business and want to start more businesses. So
Sure.
props to them. But I think I don't know, for whatever reason, music is just lighting me up right now. So I'm gonna run with it while I can, you know.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of people that start businesses to fund, their music endeavors. And I think sometimes it could be a tough balance. I didn't start a business to fund music endeavors. Mine was just a progression of the side of business I was in was already kind of commerce anyway, right? Your people hiring you for services. But any advice you would give to someone like that's like, hey, is that a good idea? Should they just go all into the music and scrape by? Is there a way that could work in your opinion? Or
I'm sure it could work. I mean, I sort of tried to do that, like where I just, got laid off from my corporate job and was like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to make the music thing work. Like, if it kills me, like, I just want to do something that excites me. And what ended up happening is that I started to make decisions for my artist career based on money, right? Because I had to pay rent and I had to, survive. And I think that music is, and just art, being an artist in general, like you shouldn't be driven by almost any financial decision, right? You should be like making art that excites you and that fulfills like whatever vision or thing that you want to create. And Elizabeth Gilbert actually talks about this in Big Magic quite a bit, because she's the one who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And then she wrote a book about creativity. And she basically said that like she knew like that she would never allow her art to be driven by money. So she was always like a waitress or had some sort of a job, right, to just like pay the bills while she was pursuing her craft. So if I could do it again, I would argue that like it's worth, having a profession or something that like pays the bills while pursuing your craft and like letting it build up over time instead of trying to like go all in. So yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with like funding your art through business. But
there's
curious if you actually allow yourself to like.
Yeah, I mean, at some point it's like it's gonna have to be the music's gonna have to be put on pause for at least some length of time, to build a business that could then fund it. So whether that's a good thing or not, who knows? Depending on what market you're in, there could be kind of time sensitive, right? Based on like age or trends that are happening. So
yeah, that's a good point.
There are, I think where some people do it right is like where they lead, they're very audience first, like you hear that term for companies, right? But like, let's say they're a producer. Producers do this all the time where they build up a following, an audience of people that like what they do. And then they can just be like, cool, that's the business, like I'll get $8,000 for a sponsored post. I got sample packs. I have, I get hired for mix work, like, so they're kind of doing it at the same time. So they're still artists, but it just so happens that they're able to kind of just, I guess, diversify. It is all based on them being, who they are and a group of people liking that and willing to buy things from them. So
yeah, which is kind of like back to the whole like building trust, like just being yourself, right? Creating revenue streams off of those things. Like yeah, totally can work. It just takes a while, I think, to build that audience. So I also wonder how much like you can really just like strategically build that versus organically build that. Like I know you can strategically build it, but I feel like there has to be something like that you're doing first that has some sort of organic like attachment to it first, and then you can have a strategy and grow. But like just coming out of the gate hot with the strategy, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it can work, but I don't. It hasn't.
There's a lot of messaging for that, especially for artists. Like at the start, I'm not saying that's bad necessarily, but I think most of the people I knew that did anything in music when we started, like we're all just kind of like we're playing music for fun and doing shit, and like, then you kind of get to a point where you like are past that first stage. This goes back to working with like intermediates in advance, right? Versus a beginner. Because it's tough in the beginning. It's like, I don't like clients, right? Let's say you're a record producer getting clients or recording bands, you have a studio. I wasn't good at business. I just played in bands and I had the recording box and I knew all my friends were in bands. That's how I got my first clients. Like there was no strategy behind it. It just was whatever,
Yeah.
luck or placement or what, right place at the right time. So sometimes it is hard to strategize the beginning.
Yeah.
Unless someone's just like
Absolutely.
a visionary and has this thing is like, I already know what this is going to look like. And that can happen, but it's like you have to develop yourself even to the point where you could do that. So yeah.
Yeah, which is why like some of the like, business coaches who like want to like not only, help build your business like from whatever, scale it to six figures or something, but also like formulate the idea for you too. Like that's where
Right.
things I feel like I
That's
just like
tough.
it makes, yeah, it's like that. I mean, it's possible. It's just it seems, you know, hard. It seems hard.
Yeah. Cause yeah, there was a thing, I think it was, I heard it through someone else by way of someone else, but I think it was Steve Jobs that originated this. But he was kind of saying like, you have to go collect dots first before you can connect the dots. So I look at like collecting the
Yeah.
dots, like you're kind of trying a bunch of different stuff, if someone doesn't have a lot of experience, it is hard for them to, of course, they don't have clarity on like what direction they want to go. It's like, yeah, you haven't experienced stuff yet. Like, versus I'm sure you did a lot of different things. Like for me, it was like playing in bands and then recording and then producing some tracks and then, mix and trying a bunch of different things. Be like, I kind of like this. And then what it ended up being was I actually just like running the business and getting the work and developing producers to do the work. That's what I found more fun than kind of being in the trenches doing it myself. But I didn't just like come up with that. You collect the
Yeah.
dots and then you connect the dots by, okay, I'm all right
Yeah.
at this piece, but I'm a little better at this piece, but this guy really is good at this piece. Now we have a business. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I want to be mindful of your time. I was just going to I want to end on a high note, but also I'm curious to know, before we end on the high note, what's sort of the biggest, like whatever you're comfortable sharing? I think, and maybe you don't have this, but most people I know in their business, there was a time where they were just like, I don't know if this is like some big obstacle that you maybe thought you weren't going to be able to overcome. Was there one? If so, what was that? What was that like?
I've never felt like, because I've sort of been working off of and building off of like I think success that I saw early on, I've never had a moment in business where I've been like, oh, like this is, this is something that's going to end me, or this is going to, I have those thoughts all the time though, like, oh, like, one sale goes bad or something, and then you don't have this apocalyptic thinking and you're like, oh, the magic's gone, it's all over, like everything's done. Um,
Feel that.
but that to me is more about like my mental health than anything else, like, and I think I've never had something that I think like just completely felt insurmountable. Like I think actually what felt insurmountable to me was like enjoying life when having a corporate job. Like that is what led me to go into this whole world of like music and entrepreneurship. And that was horrible. Like I feel like that was the worst thing that I ever, as far as like business, had to deal with. But I'm very grateful for that, and that's how I think most things in life are, right? Like just
Yeah.
those things that cause a bit of suffering and make you somewhat miserable, like you probably learn the most from those lessons. And yeah, like I wish I had a better answer for you,
No,
but I
that's
feel like,
fine.
yeah, once
Yeah.
once the business started, I feel like I've just been sort of like slowly building.
Well, there was a gym in there in the sense that like, has something actually physically happened to where this could go wrong? No. Have I thought it could? All the time. That's
Yeah.
in itself right there. The catastrophize, is that the word? Yeah,
Yeah,
we go apocalyptic.
catastrophizing
Yeah.
is the right word. I use apocalyptic thinking, but you're actually that's the correct word.
Yeah, both work. We know what it feels like. And it feels like both of those words combined times 10. Totally, man.
Totally.
Yeah. I think it's like actual things that could have taken it out. Probably not so much. Do we think it would, or think that, it would happen? Same with me, man. Like I have a boutique consulting agency. So it's detaching the ego from a from people's results because I'm in their business with them. So it's even almost like partners. So when something doesn't go right, it's just like, what am I doing with my life? I'm terrible at this. This is awful, you know?
Yeah.
And I think what we touched on earlier, like detaching your ego from any of that stuff, like therapists can't do that. A therapist would quit in a month if they attach their ego to every client they saw and
Right.
how that client was doing. Right. So I want to end on
And
a
that
high note here. Well, go for it.
that's probably not just one last point on this. That's
Yeah.
probably why we do attach ourselves so much to like the money, right? And the revenue and things like that. And it's like a self, like the more you make, the more you kind of want to like attach yourself to that because it's like your validation. It is your justification. Like, yeah, you're helping people. Yeah, you're doing all this like cool stuff. But if you were just helping people and there was no money in the bank account, like you would question a lot of what you do. And I think like that's why it's almost like having like a little bit of a like something let me just share, like one thing I do sometimes when I am feeling down, I will just go read the reviews, like the testimonials that I've collected over time for the Hyperbits masterclass, because it's like actually a really big like ego boost. I'm just like, oh, like look at all these people I've helped. Like look at how happy they've been with what I've created. Look at like all the things they've gone on to do, right? Like it does help in a much more like, I don't know, holistic way than like me looking at my bank account, which fluctuates, right? And
Right.
but those testimonials and their success and their attitude, like that's a forever thing. That's not going anywhere.
And the toughest sort of season of my business was the end of the first year. And I'd switched from running a production agency that gave a bunch of producers jobs to being what a lot of people saw as like an internet guru, and lost a lot of people, not a lot of people, but there were a lot of people that distanced themselves from that, you know, which is fine. And just pushed, you know, kind of pushed out of some communities that I used to be a part of, and dude, just question it. Like, I'm like, not only is this not going to work, now I've just totally ruined everything I've been building. Right. And I just kind of finally got back on my feet from a bad time. Before I started the consulting company, and every morning I would read every client win and watch it took like an hour and a half. I did it every morning. I probably still should. I don't think it probably shouldn't have stopped doing that. I think it's always good. Maybe not an hour and a half, but I had to do that just to survive the day, dude, just to like have enough confidence to get on my calls that day. Like, so yeah, that's a super important practice.
And I think we also go through seasons, right, where that type of stuff is more necessary than at other times. And like,
right.
That's why I think living fully and being happy and all those things, being confident, all that, it's like, it's a daily practice, you know? And for me, like meditation is also a big part of, you know, just my overall health and breath work. And like I was saying, I have a cold plunge, right? Like I do all sorts of these things to sort of help me get to that point where I can hop on a call and feel confident and good. For whatever reason, it just takes a lot for me. You know, for some people, I feel like they can walk around and they feel like they own the place and they're just like, they've been confident their whole lives. And I'm envious of those people. But for me, it takes a lot more work and like consistent practice to remind myself for whatever reason. So it sounds like me and you are actually fairly similar on that in that sense.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I just want to wrap up here with anything exciting that's coming up, or what's new for, is you going to continue expanding the Hyperbits, the school? Or you have any other ideas that you're going to launch off that, or any other fun things you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, we're always revamping the school. It's one of those things that like is just this like ongoing forever project, you know, because like, you know, like times change, you know, plugins change, styles change. Overall, our strategy for music has actually remained fairly similar, but we do want to keep things like up to date and make sure that like, you know exactly what's going on in the current state of the industry. So we're always updating the Hyperbits Masterclass. We are launching over the next few months some free courses like for beginners, actually, just to kind of like attract some people kind of into our ecosystem early.
Right.
But we're not going to charge for it. It's going to be completely free. So basically, if you're learning like Ableton or Logic or FL, like, you know, you'll be able to just check out one of our courses completely for free. which I think will be really cool, because I think we could easily charge, $300-$400 for these courses. That we're actually treating them as if it was like a true course build, but plan to give them out entirely for free. So that's a exciting little project, and yeah, just like, I mean, I'm working on music all the time, and I've actually got my first gig in I haven't DJ'd in 5 years, and I'm going to be playing like a yacht, like this mega yacht party on July 4th here in San Diego.
Nice.
So
Hell yeah.
yeah, just excited about that. And yeah, I'm sure there's probably some things I'm forgetting, but yeah, just genuinely excited about a lot of things, man.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you doing this, man. So kids, you heard it here first. Take a lot of mushrooms, jump in some cold water. You could be successful like our man. I was playing. Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. That was awesome, man. That was awesome. I feel like I could talk for you for the rest of the day, but I'll let you back to what you're doing.
Likewise,
awesome.
Man.